Johnny! I'll be back.
And you will know my name is the Lord. I'm walking here. I'm walking here.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. Groovy.
See, now I just want to go to a restaurant where after I order, they just throw the raw materials down onto the table in front of me and then just stare at me for 45 minutes.
That's pretty close to a Korean barbecue.
True.
I mean, you have the grill, so at least you can do something with the ingredients, but that's mostly it. You just call them the parts you want, and you assemble.
Ever been to a stir-fry place? You do the opposite of that, and you feel like a god.
No, that's like the most awkward. Like, here you go, slave. Cook my terribly put together stir-fry bowl. Like, I don't know if you guys have hoo-ha out by you, but we have some of those in the Midwest. And it's just, I can feel them judging me like, dear God, this guy took, I think, Brussels sprouts and like crab meat. And I think it's just 6 pounds of peppercorn. I refuse to fry this. This is garbage. Get better taste, is what I expect them to say each time I bring a bowl to them. They got to do it like Burger King, where it's like you can order a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe make like one substitution without me throwing you out. That's the only way food should be.
I'm the same way with hibachis. It's like, no, I don't want to see the food made for my entertainment. That should be behind closed doors in a smoke-filled room. I don't want to know that people made my food. People are disgusting.
And this is staying in the episode purely for that line.
Oh, great. So, surprise, we have 9 minutes of garbage at the start of the episode.
What else is new?
Well, with all that out of our systems. Blah. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Box Office Pulp, your one-stop podcast for movies, madness, moxie, and tonight, shoot, I didn't come up with another M word. That joke had to die eventually, and I think I finally killed it. Anyways, I'm your host, Cody, and I'm being joined today by my co-host, Mike. Say hello, Mike.
I'm the page master.
And Jamie. Say hello, Jamie.
I was better in the book.
Always true. And, more importantly, we have a special guest tonight. Joining us today, everyone say hello to Adam DeCollibus, author and part-time podcast caller.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Fantastic. How are you doing today, Adam?
Doing pretty good. Can't complain.
All right. Well, sadly, not all of the news out there was good. Earlier today, when I was sitting down to try and write this intro, I saw the news that Stan Lee had passed away. And boy, that one's smart. But it really got me thinking, at least he was here long enough to get to see the full rise of comic book movies. So all the properties that he'd been working on, years ago, developing these characters, are now regularly making hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office and completely dominating pop culture. And it's fascinating to me because if you look at comic book movies, the way they're adapted into films is kind of a piecemeal thing. If you were to pick up something like Jaws, that's pretty darn close to how the book is. The movie, the book, you could follow along. You'd say they're very similar. But for a comic book, you don't quite get that. You kind of get bits and pieces of column A, column B, and then they just make up everything else to fill in column C. And it's just a really, really interesting topic to me to go through and look at what movies nail adaptions and which ones don't, and the reasons for that, because everyone has a different approach to the material. For the last few months, I guess it'd be, we've been covering the Harry Potter movies on the show, and it's really interesting to see how those diverge and follow the source material, and how rabid the fans are. Little changes there can really freak people out, or on occasion, some of those changes are the thing people point out that they love the most. So I thought we could sit down for a while here and just maybe discuss some of our favorite book to films and what we think they did right in all of those. Or mostly because I just can't stop complaining about the Dark Tower, what can go horribly, horribly amiss. Also, hopefully no one here is in love with the Hobbit films, but I might have a few negative things to say there as well. Spoilers, I was once cast as Bilbo Baggins in a community theater production as the world's tallest hobbit, and I have a special connection to that material. Did I never tell you guys that one?
No!
Oh, okay. All right.
How does this never fucking come up?
You can put that on a resume.
I could, yeah. There were T-shirts with my face drawn on them.
Wait, what? We've never seen this?
As a kid, I was in one community play, and it was a a play version of The Hobbit. So I have brown curly hair. I was out of shape as like a 13-year-old. So they're like, perfect. Put this fat kid in some hairy feet, and we got a show.
I wonder where they got the hairy feet. That's the question.
I did not ask any questions about that. There was just one day, like 2 days before we performed, where they put some spirit gum on top of my foot and just slapped down some like kind of pubic hair stuff. I don't want to know where it came from. I really don't.
Yeah, no.
Super itchy. Super itchy. It looked very realistic. I don't want to know.
Just gonna leave it a mystery.
Exactly.
So whenever you watch the Hobbit movies, Cody, there's a sense of professional jealousy there, isn't
A
there?
little bit. A lot of it, actually. It's like, God damn it. He thinks he's a great actor, doesn't he? Not my Bilbo Baggins.
He doesn't pick up the ring the way I picked up the ring.
The pass out scene in The Hobbit Hole. I don't know if I would have played it that way, but that's just one professional's opinion against another. No, I've never actually gone back to watch the video of that because I'm sure it's the most embarrassing thing in the world. And it's not the performances that I find negative in The Hobbit. It's the idea that they took what was a very episodic book about, God, how long is that? 200, 300 pages? It's not super long, and decided to stretch that into 9+ hours of movie. That's the same complaint everyone has, but the idea of that shift really takes the focus away from almost the more kid-friendly whimsy that would be throughout the actual source novel and makes it more of a giant blockbuster action flick, which doesn't quite fit for The Hobbit. It might work great in The Lord of the Rings, but to me it drove me crazy just seeing Bomber and the rest of the dwarves running around, bouncing between canyons and between rivers and stuff. It was very, very unsettling.
Well, it comes across as unintentionally hilarious whenever the premise of the book is intentionally as small stakes as possible. Like they're just hunting for treasure. So whenever you restructure it to be an epic battle of good versus evil, and it's still just them getting treasure, it just makes the movies more of an odd shaggy dog story.
They had some talk about greed in there, I guess. You do have to admit, though, in the books, Bilbo Baggins gets knocked out with a rock at like the start of the Battle of the Five Armies and misses the whole climax. And I have a feeling that would never quite play to today's audiences.
No.
Just imagine you spend like 8 hours getting up to this point. There's millions of dollars of CGI on the screen of armies approaching, and then all of a sudden Bilbo just takes one in the face and then wakes up in its credits.
Wow.
The greatest troll job Peter Jackson ever plays on mankind.
I just got to throw it back to the fact that Cody just said that the way they were hopping around was unsettling.
That's my best wordplay I've ever unintentionally done, and I'm going to retire from talking for the rest of my life now. I get a gold trophy and I can just go home. But, I mean, everyone knows about The Hobbit and how it doesn't quite work. That's an extreme example. But there's other more subtle stuff out there when it comes to movie adaptations. Like, have you guys ever seen the Jack Reacher films with Tom Cruise?
No, I have not.
I've only seen one, but it was ages ago.
Yeah. So just imagine Tom Cruise. It's Tom Cruise as he appears in every movie. He's not bad in it. It's actually, I enjoyed the movie quite a bit. I haven't seen the second one, but I tried to get my dad to watch it because I knew he was a fan of the books. And he like stopped me before I could even put the DVD in the player because he was looking at the cover and he's like, no, this is not right. Apparently, let's see, I grabbed this from Wikipedia, and this is how they describe Jack Reacher. He is 6'5" tall, weighing 210 to 250 pounds, and having a 50-inch chest. And never go back. He is described as having a six-pack like a cobbled city street, a chest like a suit of NFL armor, and biceps like basketballs. And we got Tom Cruise to play the role. And my dad could never reconciliate those two in his mind. He's like, this goes against the spirit of the book to cast Tom Cruise as this mountain of a man.
He's not nearly monstrous enough.
I feel like Tom Cruise still describes himself that way, though.
Yeah, that's his resume.
And it works perfect when you're doing something like Mission Impossible, but I can definitely see the point there. And maybe it's a better off that I never read the source books on that. I've heard the same thing about Sahara. Did you guys remember that one at all with Matthew McConaughey?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was going to be a franchise.
That was supposed to launch like 100 movies. That was going to be the next big thing out there. Just Matthew McConaughey as the American James Bond, but dirty.
Really?
It was supposed to be huge, and boy, I remember just how that made zero impact on release.
I thought that one was originally just to be standalone.
The movie itself works as a standalone, but there's a large book series behind it, and the idea was that this one made bank. They were just going to keep going back to the well.
Wow.
Yeah, this was during that amazing period between when the Star Wars prequel started to tank and when we discovered superhero movies after Spider-Man broke back, where studios were just trying to latch on to anything they possibly could, which worked out great in the end because that's how we got so many great adaptations that wouldn't have been made in anything other than a franchise vacuum. Like that's how we got the Lord of the Rings in the first place.
Lord of the Rings is really just a miracle project if you think about everything that had to go through. The fact that Peter Jackson, who at that point had pretty much only directed gore films and one Oscar contender, was given a check for hundreds of millions of dollars to go film a giant trilogy like that with CGI that hadn't been proven. I'm pretty sure Peter Jackson had like naked photos of somebody at New Line. It's the only way I can explain my mind that he got everything to play out the way he wanted to.
They actually made it into the movie as one of the Golem designs.
He's one of the ghost witches in the background of part 3. But I don't want to keep going on the negative ones here because, like Jamie was saying, there's actually quite a few amazing book to movie projects that have happened out there. And they don't have to be page per page perfect. Something like Hellboy really grabs my attention because Del Toro's attention to the lighting and framing, trying to match the compositions to the comic book. The story itself, not really quite any of Mignola's comics, but the spirit, I would argue, is still there, which is the most important thing. Or you have ones where they make changes to make something brilliant, like any of the James Bond movies. If you guys have ever read any of Ian Fleming's books, James Bond is pretty much just a sociopath. Like, he's not overly charming, he's pretty rough, murders a lot of people. And, I mean, a lot of that's still true about Sean Connery's portrayal, but there's some sort of charisma that shines through Connery that makes it less of a pulp novel and something much grander. And something we all not only watch just for the thrills, but still love. And, I don't know, maybe it's partially because James Bond vacations all over the world and gets all the pretty women. Or maybe it was small changes like that that makes it more enduring.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the biggest plus in the column of adapting properties is so often you end up growing the world and growing the characters in ways that never would have happened if they just stuck to one medium. That's how you get things like the James Bond franchise, which is arguably better in its complete form than how it was whenever Fleming originally created James Bond and the world he inhabited. I think part of the reason for that is writing is such a inherently secluded activity mentally.
Yeah, I can speak for that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So there's so much stuff that will never ever occur to a single solitary writer, no matter how genius they may be. I feel like whenever you open this stuff up to the world, it will always do more good than harm.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to some of the quotes because I just watched The Princess Bride on Blu-ray again last night, and there's a Criterion edition of it out now. And on the commentary track they actually have the author talking over parts of the movie, and that switches back and forth with the director, so you get both sides. And it's one, really fascinating to me that they're not in the same room, but just giving separate commentaries. But two, it's just really interesting to see the guy basically admit, hey, this is different, that's different, I like what they did here, this all comes together pretty close. Because you don't always get that. Stephen King adaptations are always fascinating because sometimes he's very happy with changes, and then other times you get stuff like The Shining where he just kind of swears it off for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Right. I've yet to see The Shining, but I've seen so many films on YouTube about it. on how there's the conspiracy theory about how Stanley Kubrick filmed the moon landing and how that's connected in the movie.
Yeah, because there's the sweater with the Apollo rocket on it and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, and the apartment number, and the patterns on the carpet it's just they went deep with that one.
There's an entire cottage industry of just analyzing that one film.
I saw a theory on it recently that someone was claiming Stanley Kubrick somehow like photoshopped his face into the clouds at the start of that movie.
Oh yeah,
People will
I've
say
seen that.
whatever they want.
Oh.
But is it
Did you see
there,
the
though?
face?
Can you see it?
No, not really.
Mike, now that
I've
you're taking
tried.
vertigo drugs, can you go try and find Stanley Kubrick's face at the start of The Shining? Will that help?
I don't want to have vertigo and then look at Stanley Kubrick. That's terrifying.
Or the clouds. It's not a good mix.
I suppose not. Adam, as like an author though, how would you approach something? Do you think? What's your opinion on trying to translate? If you are ever lucky enough to have one of your works translated to screen, I mean, most authors probably don't have a say in how it's done, but you can all imagine.
Oh yeah, no, I've definitely imagined as I like even as I write, I still think of the movie aspect of it because I think like in all creators' heads, there's the movie playing in their head, or at least that's how mine works. And
Yeah.
oof, I don't know. It would be the least I would say is that it would be extremely difficult. And if I was to be like really, really happy with the way it worked out, I definitely have to be there with the screenwriters and the directors. But just to see them take the work and run with it, that would be crazy.
I think I'd be a paycheck guy. You were making it? Great. What's my check? Oh my God, it's yours. You can kill my babies.
Feel free to add
Wow.
robots.
Just go all robots.
You want to
All
make
over the
how many
place.
Kingsman sequels?
Yes, please. I'll be a producer on all of them. Going back to what you said, that this is not really related to movies at all, but that idea of a projector in your head as you're writing something or imagining something, that came up in a high school English class of mine, and it blew my head because it was mentioned to the teacher, someone visualizing the story and how they really liked parts they were visualizing compared to, like the book cover illustration or something dumb they were looking at. And a couple of the other kids in the room did not understand that concept. When they were reading, they weren't visualizing the stuff. They just like took the words in, and that was as far as the creative process went for them. They didn't try and construct I don't even know if try is the right word. They just naturally didn't construct that kind of mental movie. And those were the kids who hated English class. Like they just didn't feel there was any worth to them being there. And it just never occurred to me until that time that there were people who didn't have that experience.
Yeah, I've never heard of that happening. That's crazy. I don't
Are
know
they
how
dead
they could
inside?
read without seeing.
I can only assume.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, no, there's something going on.
I mean, I wouldn't have suggested that to them because they all probably would have beaten me up and thrown me in like a trash can or something, but maybe.
There could be like the division in the school of like the people who see the projector and people who don't, and then like you can have like a posse of people who see the projector, then you can't get beat up.
I just feel like maybe if you're not into that, if you don't naturally have those skills, you find other outlets for creativity, be it physical sculpting, like maybe you just make yourself a bodybuilder. I don't want to put that on bodybuilders because I'm sure there's plenty of them out there with creative lives. But it just blew my mind. I still have trouble imagining reading a book and not being able to just paint that mental picture along with it. But I can definitely understand now why so many people have zero interest in picking up a book for fun, because it would be fun at that point. You're just reciting the words.
Yeah, no, that would be torture just to read and not see anything. That would just be like staring at the screen in a movie theater and the projector's off.
And those people become studio executives.
That's,
Zing! And then there's immediately like a 10-gallon brick that falls through my house and kills me.
it reminds me of those stories you hear about people who have brain surgery and coming out of it, they no longer understand music anymore. Like it's all just tones to them. Like, God, I could not imagine that.
Years ago, my dad had a tumor removed, and after the surgery, I think it just did a small amount of tweaking with his thought process. As we're driving around and he gives directions, he'll know the difference between left and right. He'll know we need to make a left turn, but he'll tell me turn right at the stop sign. So I'll turn right, and then he'll yell at me like, "No, you went the wrong way." And it's been that way for years, ever since that surgery. Apparently, like he knows the directions in his head, but it gets lost in translation coming out his mouth now.
So you just rely on GPS.
I just ignore him now. I have to double check like 3
that's
times.
bold.
Turn left.
You're relevant, old
Left.
man.
GPS.
Left,
Wow.
or I'll just yell him point, and he can just point the directions.
Way to reduce your dad to Hodor levels, Cody.
It's fine. He can still beat me up anyways. He's a tough man.
But I do think that is that mental movie we all create in our heads whenever we read. Those of us who have that gene, apparently, because I guess it's 50-50 now.
Oh, I hope it's not that much.
There's that kind of that thrill of seeing if somebody else's notes match up to yours whenever it comes to the content of a book. Because I know that's always my favorite thing to talk about whenever I'm talking about a book a mutual friend and I have read is, okay, so in your head, what's this? And what are these? And seeing that game played out with all of the money in the world sometimes is absolutely riveting. Like, I just return to the Lord of the Rings films again. I will never forget the moment I sat there watching Fellowship of the Ring and saw the events of The Hobbit recapped as told by Peter Jackson. And that moment of, oh, this looks like what I thought it would look like, but pretty. Now, this is what somebody with a better imagination than I have thinks all this stuff looks like.
See, do the stage play version I did. I just imagined it was all paper mache.
Oh,
So
Like
seeing
some-
people that weren't wearing fake beards is like, well, not amateur fake beards is like, what? What is this? Did they get real cavemen? What is happening? They found real dwarves, guys. It's amazing.
I have to make war with this strange new land discovered by Peter Jackson.
It was just a documentary the whole time. On the other hand, though, Jamie, while that's really fun, I think it can lead to a lot of issues too, because people are very, very, very married to a lot of the ideas they come up with in their head. So when they see someone else portraying it, they get a little defensive, like, that's not right. That's not right. They screwed up all these details. I never would have made it that way. I think we see that, hell, with the latest Star Wars film, the portrayal of Luke Skywalker was so opposed to how people had imagined Luke from all the expanded universe stories that it was kind of an affront to them when he was a totally different character than they had imagined for 20 years. Spoilers for Star Wars, no one's happy now. Everyone hates each other. I should stop talking about Star Wars before they start mailing bombs to my house.
Now, these are the true Star Wars.
And we've been doxxed.
I wonder what that would even look like. What would the package look like? Would it just say the Force is with you, and then boom, and that's it? Or
Maybe if they're being that clever, I figured it'd just be like a lot of obscenities. Just to get
Justice
the
for
point
Windu.
across. I'm pretty sure if you talk to Samuel L. Jackson, he's still out there saying, I'm alive. I got the Force. I'm down an arm. That's not a problem. They've got robot limbs in this universe. I don't think he'll admit he's dead.
no, that doesn't seem like something he'd do.
Nah, you could
I feel-
probably
I feel
ask
like-
him about Deep Blue Sea, and he'd still say he was alive in that one too, though.
I feel like he admits absolutely nothing. Like he could legit be eating dinner with you, and he'd have like some, I don't know, whatever, ketchup on his face, and he'd be like, "Hey, bro, you got ketchup on your face," and you would just, no, I don't. I feel just like that's his style.
Personal question: if you saw Samuel L. Jackson eating a hamburger and he's just making a mess on his face, would you have the nerve to tell him that? Because I'm pretty sure I would
wouldn't.
just not make eye contact and be
I'd
like, "It's
copy
cool,
him
man.
so I'd
That's
be
how
closer to him.
And we
You
all
have
know
the
what
secret
happens when he
sauce on
has
your
egg on
cheeks?
his face.
Oh, speaking of the spirit, what
Words never
what a
said.
weird thing. I mean, if I can tie that back into the idea of adapting source material, wow. I guess that's what happens when you have one guy basically try and turn one story into a completely separate one. Instead of the spirit being the Will Eisner originals, we got Frank Miller's Sin City as the spirit. And that was such a weird whiplash moment for me. I got all excited when that movie was coming out, and I bought a lot of the source comics, got all excited, read all of them, went into the theater, and I loved the film, but I could recognize it was a train wreck. Like, I loved it because it was so bad.
The Spirit is one of the greatest bad comic book movies ever made. It's right up there with Steel.
Oh, boy.
But that's kind of the double-edged sword when it comes to any adaptation. If an adaptation is going to be interesting, then it can't simply attempt to just recreate as closely as possible another artist's work, because except for very rare occasions, you're only going to come up with an inferior copy. I mean, to make it interesting, you have to put a little bit of yourself in there. And it has to be this artist as presented by this other artist with a little bit of their own vision and their own fingerprint in there. And yeah, the Spirit is maybe the worst case scenario of something like that happening. Like, here's not Will Eisner, but Will Eisner as told through the lens of Frank Miller, who is in his crazy alcoholic period. So we're getting all of the anger and darkness of that man and what he was going through at that period, kind of infecting this this universe that probably would have been better off just hedging as close to the source material as possible.
Yeah.
And then you get the opposite. You get things like James Gunn with Guardians of the Galaxy, where it's like, despite those movies being as recent as they are, it's really hard to picture the Guardians of the Galaxy before James Gunn touched them.
Well, most people probably didn't know anything about the Guardians before that. They're one of those low-key comic properties that just didn't matter to most comic fans. Didn't matter at all to movie fans. I mean, the awareness of them was pretty much zero, which is probably for the best because he was able to take those characters and completely readapt them to his own needs.
Yeah, that's the best case scenario of somebody taking all the stuff that's weird and fucked up inside of them and grafting them onto a pre-existing story and pre-existing characters.
Yeah. And I think not all properties lend themselves to, I guess, creative symbiosis. But going back to the Spirit, like you said, that works best when
I
viewing.
love, sorry to interrupt.
But
I'm very excited that we're going to spend 10 minutes talking about the Spirit. I wish this could be every episode.
I've been waiting for years, man.
Adam, have you seen the Spirit?
Me?
Sorry. Yeah. Have you ever seen the Spirit?
No.
It's
I haven't
one
seen
of the
it.
most fascinating Samuel L. Jackson performances ever. It's an amazingly bad movie. Everything's just CGI together on green screens.
Oh.
But it's amazingly bad. It's just you have to see it, I think, at least once just to see what a thing it is.
Did it just come out?
No, this was years ago, something like
2008,
Oh.
I believe.
yeah, 2008.
Oh shoot.
Yeah, so there's a scene where Samuel Jackson is just screaming about getting egg on his face, and that is just lodged in my brain for the rest of the time.
Wow.
Sorry, that was a bit of context for everyone else who didn't bother watching The Spirit, which is 99.9% of the world. Mike, I cut you off. What was the point you were trying to make?
I forget not everyone is us, which is good for humanity. But like the Frank Miller's The Spirit is Frank Miller merging himself into the Spirit, and it's evil Frank Miller, so it super doesn't work. But I think even good, not alcoholic, insane Frank Miller wouldn't be able to do that either, because that property, I believe, works best when just being what it is. And you can compare that to the 80s Spirit movie, which is a TV movie with no money and starring Flash Gordon. And it's incredible because it transcends the TV movie cheapness of the time, based solely on the fact that it's adapting something that is whole and no matter where you put it is going to be good. So it's not hampered by all the, ADC movie of the week crap that's thrown on it.
Oh yeah, you can check this on the DC Universe app streaming now. Do yourself a favor and watch the Spirit TV movie. If you're a fan, it's everything you could want in a Spirit movie.
I had no idea this even existed. This is exciting.
It's delightful.
I feel like we should also be getting paid for DC now. Someone want to put in a sponsorship note? Like, please, $7 so we could pay for 1 month?
$7 is asking for a lot.
That's true.
Have you
Well,
folks at home tried Batman?
Okay, so that's a weird Chinese puzzle trap kind of thing here. We've got Batman the comic books, which go on to inspire Batman the Tim Burton movie, which kind of goes off to inspire Batman the animated series, which then goes on to inspire its own comic books that adapt the stories from the TV show. And I don't know which layer of adaptation we're supposed to stop at and where it stops inspiring other forms of itself.
Man,
But
that
that
really
one-
went full circle.
It keeps going. I mean, there are video games off of it, toys, more comics inspired by those comics, TV shows inspired by the TV show. It's the germ of that one idea. It's just amazing how that exploded and just is in 90 different things. And not even all of them Batman.
Yeah, you do not find a more perfect symbiosis between creator and audience than with long-running comic books. Because within a generation, the people who are telling the stories, who are making the movies, writing the comics, doing whatever, they're people who are fans of the last incarnation. And that cycle just keeps self-perpetuating over and over and over across all mediums.
Or the guy really didn't like the last iteration of the comic and is now trying to do everything different possible in the current iteration.
Either way, influence goes on forever, indefinitely.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you see that all the time now in film series. If it lives long enough, eventually they'll hit a bad stretch. Instead of canceling it forever, they'll go, oh, no, there's still money there. Let's just try it again, but make it different. Let's take Tim.
Let's put Tom Cruise in it.
Yeah, just put Tom Cruise in. No, if Batman's covered in neon, what if the next one was made by Christopher Nolan? What if everyone hated the last James Bond, so now it starts in black and white? You can go in so many opposite directions that are still clearly tied to their predecessor, and it's a fascinating process figuring out that pull and push and what works and what doesn't.
Those long running properties and franchises have an interesting snowball effect attached to them, where they just keep picking up stuff that creators have left there as it rolls down the hill. So you get James Bond, which can keep rebooting itself, but also keeps somebody who makes a new one, wants to, fix it or change things up, is inspired by a series of different things other people did in the past, thinking the same thing. And Batman works the same way. It's all mythology based, and when you're retelling mythology, you're not really telling a straightforward story. You're telling stories that have been told and then retold and retold, and details are added and details are lost. And it works the same way. The function's the same. Or you can see every Batman movie is Batman. Like, you can't really make the argument. Even Batman and Robin is just bad 60s Batman. Like when he was, fighting panda bears and going to space. Batman Begins is the most faithful, but also not at all, really. It just adds entirely new characters and plot points, and the Batman movies actually follow the comic book realm in an interesting way, where Burton's first two are the Bill Finger comics. Batman Forever and Batman and Robin are moving into the sillier stuff. Batman Forever is literally when Robin was added and things lightened up some. Batman and Robin is when things went off the rail. We got Zebra Batman and I Must wearing a pink costume.
Do you think they're ever going to make a sequel with Batman versus the Panda Bear?
Just a matter of time.
This is why I would like it. Batman would be fighting like this weird embodiment of his color scheme.
Yeah, Panda Man. We got to get Panda Man up in here.
It's part of the Batman Biggest Boners cinematic universe.
As they go through and start dredging up all the C-list villains, I'm so excited for them to just grab the worst possible ones. Like, who haven't we done yet? Fine, throw it. If they're new, do what you want. I don't care.
Alex Die.
It's crazy quilt.
Yes, 1,000 times I would take that. I mean, even though Bane is a famous character, the way Tom Hardy put such a crazy spin on that, I would love it if they did that with like Firefly or some of the other lesser known Batman villains. Mostly, I just want every bad guy to have a silly voice.
It's all it takes to make me happy.
Batman.
Thinking with the silly voice for the panda, would he just be mute, or would they have subtitles, or would they do the silly voice?
No, it'd be a very racist Chinese accent.
I was going to go for a not racist Chinese accent, but I mean, if they want to do your version, whatever.
I just like the idea of them getting progressively more in hot water for every Batman movie with something questionable.
Just imagine how bad the product placement would have gotten. I mean, it was like when they started adding Chinese actresses in Iron Man 3 because it was a co-production. Now we just have Batman movies where they're randomly cutting to like the Chinese zoos, like, look at their pandas. What a booming economy.
Don't download any suspicious emails.
Truly, this is a beautiful, thriving country, and then it's just like a commercial for the next 15 minutes. I swear to God, they did that in one of the Twilight movies. There was a part where one of the vampires is standing on a mountain, and the camera just swirls around him for like 5 minutes. And I'm pretty sure it was just there to show off how cool Canada looks in parts.
The directors were very bored.
We have the sweet dolly. We have to use it. Now spin around the mountains.
Now I just want to see Captain America cut an ad for the social credit system in China. So you got docked 14 points for flashing yourself.
Box office pulp. Now not playing in China. Unfortunately, ever. So, for all of our talks of adaptation here, we're getting away from the idea of actually going back to the source material and talking about the books themselves. And hell, we've got an actual author here. I feel like we'd be remiss to not talk about your book, Adam.
Well, thanks so much for asking, and so far I've been having a blast. So thanks for having me on, firstly.
Oh, no,
And
it's great to have you.
Oh yeah.
yeah, and so Caravan. I'll just tell you guys a little bit about it. Caravan is about a guy from England who, a little after World War One, he goes to the Sahara to take pictures of the desert and to take pictures of the culture, because at that time there's this fascination for the whole culture from over there. And while he's there, he starts becoming really fascinated with the desert and the symbolicism of what it means to him, and how essentially it means that he has total freedom over his life. And to connect with what you guys are saying, and with films and all that, the film Lawrence of Arabia definitely had a large influence on the film, on the book, and on my writing for sure. So yeah, that's what the book is about.
I remember a couple of years back, I had a roommate, and he was dedicated to get through the actual book, Lawrence of Arabia. And my God, I think that sat on our coffee table for a year. That thing is a monster. It's huge. On the plus side, the movie's only like 4 hours, so I was able to get through it much faster than him. But out of curiosity, so always watch the movie. It's so much faster. So for the writing style of the book, did you go and kind of go for like a historical fiction type thing, where you're trying to make it feel as if it's something that's actually within reality but told from a made up point, or is this closer to a nonfiction tale?
It's closer to fiction. It's definitely leans more on the fiction side of things, but one thing I definitely could have done more, and I'll definitely do on my next book, is do a lot more research, because I feel like when you have that context, it makes the rest of the world in the background come alive.
Oh, for sure. I don't know if you've ever read any Eric Larson. He's notable for like The Devil in the White City. He wrote another book about the Lusitania, and his stories to me are absolutely fascinating because he's trying to make them feel as realistic as possible, and he does such a great amount of research on the time that it's taking place in. You almost feel like you're taking some sort of history class when you read something like The Devil in the White City, because you learn so much about Chicago at the turn of the century, and that it's really amazing when authors can nail that kind of stuff and not make it feel like it's just clumsy exposition.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's the other thing too. By the way, I haven't read any of his work. I'm gonna have to check it out. But,
I would highly recommend it. It's just really, really, really well done stuff. Especially if you have any interest in like the history of American architecture or anything like that, or murder. There's a lot of murder.
Hey, if you push somebody off a building, you get both of those things in one, right? You get the architecture and you get the murder.
Bonus. Yeah, no, it focuses on H.H. Holmes, like one of the most prolific early serial killers for America. So if you're into like true crime stuff, it also has that appeal.
Wow.
I feel like I should get money from him as well now. Like we'll get some money from Eric Larson, we'll get some from DC. Can someone talk about Doritos for 20 minutes?
Let me open up my bottle of Evian here.
Bring back Doritos 3D.
I do miss Doritos 3D.
It was useless snack hour.
So Adam, I'm curious. What is your experience, if any, in the region? Do you know the area personally?
Honestly, I've never been over there to the Middle East or to the Sahara. But if there's anything I could call research, it was watching Lawrence of Arabia and just reading up a little bit on it. But definitely next book I'm gonna write, there's gonna be a lot more traveling, a lot more if I can make it happen, I travel there. But there is a certain touch of legitimacy that you can feel in the writing for sure.
So what brought you to Lawrence of Arabia? What was your appeal to that?
Something that really appeals to me about that story is just the scope of the size of the story that's being told. Because in that 4-hour movie, you can just get a sense of there's just a really large world being displayed there. There's more than just Lawrence. There's more than just the tribes. You can almost get a sense of what the rest of the world would be like just from that film. Like just not from that film, but from the area that they cover. It's just an amazing film.
Yeah, and the filming style of it too. You won't see anything else, I think, ever made that same way with that ultra wide scope footage.
Yeah.
You feel like you're really seeing for miles. You are seeing for miles. Some of
Yeah.
the shots, like where Lawrence is walking out of the desert, it's such a deep shot.
Right.
He was
Oh,
really
and
miles away from anything happening when they set that up. It's amazing.
yeah, and I remember watching a documentary about how they filmed it, and they were saying that something that they took a lot of great care in is that when they were showing, like they were doing a scope of them riding the camels, they had to make sure, okay, there was no footprints, like everything was completely smoothed out. And what kept on irritating them is that they had these plastic cups on set where they were giving everybody water, and of course it was super windy. So they would finish smoothing everything out, and the wind would come by and blow out the cups onto the set, and they'd
Oh,
have to run out there and go pick up the cups, smooth everything out, and then 20 minutes later they'd blow out again. And it's just like, wow, you can appreciate it so much more when you see the scenes, and you're like, wow, wait a minute, they actually had to take care to make sure that there was no footprints. Like that's crazy.
yeah. Imagine if something like that were tried. They tried that film now. It would not be in the desert, or they might have a little bit of location filming, but the vast majority would probably just be on some sort of sound lot somewhere. It doesn't have the same feel. It never does.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I guess some of the closest stuff I can think for that kind of scope, and even that used a lot of cheating, was Ridley Scott's Prometheus, just to back up the Lawrence of Arabia connection. They actually went to Iceland for a lot of that and filmed, and you can tell those scenes. They feel so much more tactile than anything else you get where it's all CGI. Plus, that was
wow.
my in for Lawrence of Arabia too. Just watching those giant scenes where Lawrence is the source of imitation for the android David. Just watching him try and copy that performance, it was so amazing. I had to go back and watch the movie just so I knew what the hell was happening.
What the one scene I'll never forget is that scene where Lawrence of Arabia is at the headquarters near the beginning of the movie,
Mhm.
and he blows out the match, and then it cuts to the sunrise.
Yeah,
Oh God, that
that
one
was
gets me every time.
a great time for match cuts.
Yeah, match cuts.
Like, we've got like the 2001 Bone Toss. We've got the flames there. I mean, those are probably two of the better big examples I can think of. Obviously, there's thousands of them. If you look at any Edgar Wright film, you'll find 100. But those two stand out so much in my mind compared to, hell, most other things I can think of. I can't think of a movie I've seen in the last couple of years that would have anything even close to that in terms of power.
We've sincerely completely lost the match cut almost completely. It's really a depressing bummer.
Yeah.
Mike, can you add in just like a short, sad song? And if only we weren't just audio, you could put some R.I.P. match cut credits,
Why don't you sing one for us, Cody?
like just in memoriam. Do they have that at the Oscars? Do they have a sad song? I know they play one, but it doesn't have words.
Well, make up some words. You're going through with this joke. Come on, make up a song here, right on the spot about match cuts going the way of the dodo.
1 second, I'm looking up the lyrics to The Bodyguard.
This was a pull.
When I think of dramatic old music, that's "And I will
You think
always
of dramatic
love
old music, you
you."
think of that?
Yeah, you guys don't?
Whitney
No, I do.
Houston
I do
singing
for
the
sure.
theme from The Bodyguard.
That's it. That's is the best cinema I ever got, and it was all downhill after The Bodyguard. First, we lost the match cut, and then we lost The Bodyguard, and I don't know what's left for cinema. Thank
And then
God
we
we
lost-
still have books.
If you can
And then we
pull
lost
anything from this
podcast in
conversation.
India. Oh yeah.
I'm sorry. Where are you? I'm sorry, Adam. Were you saying something? I think Jamie might have stepped on you a little.
Oh no. It's all good. It's all good.
No, now you guys have to fight.
Well, this is happening.
Yep. Boy, you guys are probably in different states too. This is going to take a long time to set up.
Yeah. No,
Oh,
no.
man.
I'll just start running. I'll meet you there.
They run at each other, like Mission Impossible 2 when they're on the motorcycles. Then
Right.
And then
That's the
doves.
best way to solve these kind of battles.
I always knew the day would come when you'd have to unleash me on a host.
I've been waiting personally. It's just been a matter of time. That's why we keep getting co-hosts on here.
I mean, your own private Danny the dog.
I have no way to stretch that conversation out any further, so I'm just going to jump back to the book for a couple more questions. This is my segue. Everyone's going to have to be okay with that.
Do the clicker.
So,
Knock yourself out, buddy.
so right now we're recording this in November. There's, I'm assuming everyone here has heard of the concept of, I forget the abbreviation, but November you're supposed to write a novel within 30
Oh
days.
yeah, NaNoWriMo or something like that.
Yeah. As someone who's tried that for a grand total of like 2 days in his life consecutively, how crazy is that? As someone who's about to publish a book, may I ask how long this took you to put together?
Okay, so I'll take care of the NaNoWriMo thing really quick, and then I'll answer that question.
Sure.
So because they both answers kind of fit together. So while I was writing the book, I started it when I was about 13. Is when I had the original idea, and I started writing it out by hand. And sure enough, like 2 months later, I put the story down, completely forgot about it, and came back to it. And I just started writing the whole thing by hand, wrote 100 pages, 200 pages, 300 pages, then eventually got it to 400, and I ended it. And so after that, I took it to the computer and I started writing. And little by little, I realized, okay, one of the important things is to have a word count. That's just massive. So I started out with something just really, really tiny. I started out with 500 words, and then I stayed with 1,000 words for a while. And finally, one month, I thought, okay, and it wasn't in November. I believe it was in August. I decided that I was going to do 3,000 words every day for a month and see where that took me. And that was crazy.
That's impressive.
That was crazy. So yeah, no, the NaNoWriMo thing is definitely crazy. But looking back on it, I think the word count you're supposed to hit is what, like 1,500 or something like that.
I think the Stephen King standard is something like 10,000, but he's in some
Yeah. Oh no. No, I can't even imagine how he does it. That's just
man, he's a machine. He can't stop. Which is kind of evident in some of the books. I'm a little mad because it's going to take me like 9 years to read all of The Stand. That book is so long.
Then you have the director's cut, Cody.
I have the director's cut. It's great. It's lasted me for like 4 different plane rides. I just pull out The Stand, I read a couple hundred pages, and I don't feel like I'm getting any closer to the end.
And you always have a murder weapon on you.
It's on a Nook, unfortunately.
I was going to say it did nearly kill Stephen King whenever he had to walk it to his publisher. My favorite story ever.
One of my favorites on those end is Neil Gaiman's absolute editions of the Sandman comics. Each volume of those, I swear to God, weighs like 50 pounds, and you could use it to bludgeon anyone to death. And there's like 4 volumes of them, so people come to Neil Gaiman signings, and they're just carrying these books, and they have to stand there for hours. And every time Neil Gaiman talks about it, there's just, you can hear the remorse in his voice, like, why did I make something so heavy? These people are going to die.
No one needs this.
Why are they carrying me around?
So I think that's the real trick. Just write books that can only be pamphlets. No one gets hurt.
Or just make them ebooks.
There you go. That's easier too.
So I'm curious, what is the plan with the release of Caravan? Are you going through a self-publishing route, or do you have a publisher lined up?
Yeah, I'm doing the self-publishing route right now, and we're going to do both the ebook and the paperback.
Oh, you're getting a physical release.
Nice.
Yeah. Actually, I think it was 2 weeks ago I just got the very first paperback, and that was a crazy, crazy moment.
Man, I bet. I've been waiting for that moment my whole life.
I just buy other people's books and I write my name over them. That's as close as I get.
You know what? You're pretty smart, man. I gotta start picking.
I have 40 different books. It's amazing. I can't be stopped.
And you're so versatile.
Stephen King.
I'm in like different genres, different styles. I've got comics, strips, you name it. I just put my name on them. They're mine.
You died once. That was incredible.
Several times here. I've got a lot of Vonnegut's that are now elves. But boy, just one, the dedication to actually get this thing out after so long. I give up on things after like a day. It's astounding. And the fact that you're getting a real physical form of this, that's fantastic, man. I can't wait to see this thing.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, no, it's awesome, man. And thanks so much for bringing it up, dude. It's been a blast.
Well, appreciate having you on the show here. Yeah, next time you come up with something, you got to come visit us again. I'd love to hear more about what you got coming down the pipeline.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure thing. We'll do. I had a blast.
All right, folks. Well, that's been Box Office Pulp. If you enjoyed this episode, you can find more of us on boxofficepulp.blogspot. We're on Twitter at Box Office Pulp. You can find us on iTunes. Feel free to give a review. I think, as the kids say, smash that like. I don't know. I'm not that old. I should know these things.
I don't like how you worded that.
Tell them to crack the bell.
Is that what you children are saying these days? Crack the bell? I don't like it. Adam, where's the best place to find you online? Unless you don't want to be found online if you want your privacy. Hey.
Well, you can find me on my blog, which is thirdlionstories.com. Me and a couple authors run a thing where we just put up short fiction. You can check it out. It's pretty cool. We also got my social media. Just find me on Instagram, Adam DeCollibus. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Great. Well, thank you so much for showing up today. Really appreciate the time.
Yeah, it's the same. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
All right, folks. That's a wrap.
And like that, he's gone.
I told you the story of how my mom would, when I had girlfriends over, she would force us all to pray, like we prayed normally before meals.
No, no. What the
Well, that was
fuck?
essentially the story. But if I had girlfriends over, she'd be like, "Oh, it's time for dinner. Let's all bow our heads and pray." And my dad and I would just look at her like, "What are you doing? We don't pray. We're barely religious. Most of us aren't religious." And she would just like, "You kidders, we always pray. We're good Christians. Please don't leave."
And that's pretty savage.
Yeah. I feel bad now thinking about it. I should just let mom have that white lie. Oh well.
Yeah. No, don't
I
fight
think you
it.
should have stood your ground.
I did. I feel bad. Well, it didn't matter anyways. The relationships didn't pan out. So
Because of all the Satan.
that was it. They just were like, "Oh man, there's a lot of skulls around here. This guy might not be into God."
They start noticing pentagrams.
There's so much.
My mom's
scream.
frantically over there, just like holding curtains over stuff. No! Quick, put up that poster.
This is Box Office Pulp Guy, and this has been a Pulp Podcast production. Now please, 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 put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger and say goodnight.
And now, on with the show.
There are a lot of issues that plague the comic book community at large that are really never kind of addressed. I think what the three of us really wanted to do was do a show where we explore all of that.
And by the very hand of Odin himself, we now have the seed of this podcast.
Marvel's Odin.
Does DC have an Odin? They must.
I don't think so. Let's go with like Image Odin.
Look, DC has Hercules, so he has to have something.
Who doesn't have Hercules? Spawn.
He has Angela, who's like Lady Hercules.
Yeah, she is kind of Hercules-like. Can we still legally say Spawn has Angela? Have I just gotten us in trouble?
Well, now that she's Asgardian, I think it's fair play, so...
Hey, she's not technically Asgardian.
Yeah, but she's Asgard's assassin.
And she has like a weird new haircut. Have you seen Angela's new redesign?
Look, we can get all into the pathos of Angela on another episode.
That was just a little taste of graphic novelism.